Hey there, it's Pete with GCI Turf. Hope you're having a great day today. And water is life. You know what I'm saying? I don't know too many things that can go an extended amount of time without water. Have you yourself ever went 2 or 3 weeks without drinking water? And of course, I'm kind of talking about liquid in general, but water being the main one. If you went that long without water, chances of you still breathing and being alive would probably be slim to none. So me personally, I spend the majority of the springtime and early summer prepping the ground for summer because I have a cool season turf. It is kind of out of its environment in a way when we get to the summertime. It doesn't like the heat. It doesn't like the hot weather. The way we compensate for that is with water. And like I said earlier, there are some things you can do in a yard that will prep it going into the summer so that it will have its best opportunity to survive a summer. But at the end of the day, it can't go but so long without water. In most cases, the turf is just going to shut down and go dormant. It's going to go to sleep, going to take a nap for a few months or however long you got left in summer. When the fall rolls around, cools back down, you start to get some rain, time to put a little fertilizer down, that kind of thing. The majority of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time, your turf is going to pop back to life. It's like magic. So if you live in a place like us that has been really hit hard with no rain, it's been super hot, and there's yards everywhere in our neighborhood, up and down every single road we go down, all throughout the county, they're just completely checked out, brown and dormant. If you're in that situation, I want to encourage you right now, don't get your hopes down, okay? Because, like I said, the overwhelming majority of the time, when the fall rolls around, cool weather, rain, maybe aeration, a little bit of fertilizer, that thing's gonna pop right back to life. Over the past, I don't know, 4 years or so, 5 years, however long it's been, I've been on YouTube, I've seen this question multiple times, and I've never really made a video specifically about it, so that's what I'm doing right now. Pete, how much do you water your grasses? I got Kentucky bluegrass right here in the back. I've got tall fescue around my house, and I've got bermuda grass at my shop. All three require a little bit different watering as far as the duration of watering time that I put on it. So I'm gonna go through each one of them individually, grass by grass by grass, and tell you exactly how I water each one. Now, one thing you must realize, you must understand this concept, is I have a very strong well, puts out around 28 gallons a minute. With my booster pump on it, I'm probably around 120 PSI. My well at the shop puts out 50 gallons a minute at the same 120 PSI. So when I start talking about minutes and length of time, how long I water, you can't just magically take my minutes and apply it to your yard. The reason you can't do that is I don't know how much water volume, how much pressure your irrigation system or your sprinklers put out. I have no clue how much water volume you can put on your yard in the same amount of minutes versus what I put on my yard. And what I mean by that is I might run one of my big sprinkler jumbo sleds for 10 minutes and I might put out a ½ an inch of water. Whereas you might run your big sprinkler jumbo sled for 10 minutes and you might not put out 1/10 of an inch of water. So I'm just guessing, I don't know this for sure, but I'm probably putting out considerably more water per minute than the average home is or the average business is or something like that. So in the springtime, out here on the bluegrass, I am around 1 inch per week. Usually when I run my big sprinkler jumbo sled, it takes me about 30 minutes to get that 1 inch. So what I'll do is I'll take that 1 inch and split it into 2 different waterings, say Tuesday and Friday maybe. I try to not water on the days that I mow, so I kind of plan my watering around my mowing. And on water planning, I never, ever set the timer and forget it. I never do that. I always water based on the weather and based on my mowing days. I don't like to mow when I watered that morning. It's just a crazy pet peeve I have. I like to mow dry grass, so I don't want any chance of any water being on the grass blade or even the ground being overly moist. Now when I get to the summertime, obviously I'm going to increase that so that 1 inch of water goes to 2 inches of water, sometimes 2.5 inches of water. So from the springtime to the heat of the summer, I'm anywhere from 1 inch a week up to 2.5 inches a week of water. That's what I call my normal watering. Now I do something else called syringing. For those of you that play golf, you've probably seen this a million times, but maybe you know what it is and maybe you don't. You ever seen the guy roll up on the cart that has the big hose reel on the back? He goes by the green, kneels down, hooks the hose up to a valve, turns it on. He walks the green and he's spraying out like a pretty heavy volume of water, and he's just barely coating the grass. Well, that's called syringing. Basically all that is it cools the turf down. I like to do that around the 3 or 4 o'clock time period during the day. The reason I do it then is I can get the grass cooled down in the heat of the day, and then it has plenty of time to dry, to physically dry from the sunlight or the wind or whatever. And then at that point there's no moisture left on the grass blade. I do not want physical moisture to be in contact with the grass blade as I'm going into the nighttime hours. That's a big time no-no. That's why we always say don't water late in the evening, because that can cause disease. So that's why I do that a little earlier in the afternoon, so it has plenty of time to dry. And as far as syringing goes, I will do that every single day it's above 90 degrees. Every day. If we have 50 days in a row that's above 90, I'm going to syringe 50 days in a row, all while maintaining that 2 to 2.5 inch of my regular routine watering during the course of the week. Now my fescue out here is a little bit different. Okay, it runs off the same well, but it's not hooked up to the booster pump, so it's just getting the basic 80 psi that comes off my well. My irrigation heads are a little bit different. I run the Hunter I-20s underground out here on my fescue, and I've got anywhere from 4 to 5 heads per zone. Back there in the bluegrass on the jumbo sled, I have the big Falcon rotor heads. They put out considerably more water than my I-20s do. But out here on the fescue, the heads overlap each other, meaning I get coverage from irrigation head to irrigation head. They throw back to each head, where out there on the bluegrass they don't do that, because I don't have as many heads, because I have the booster pump, because the irrigation throws a lot further and puts out a lot more water. Even with all that said, I can still run the irrigation out here on the fescue for about an hour and get the 1 inch of water that I need. So how do I bust that hour up during the course of the week? It's pretty simple. I split it up into 2 days, 30 minutes one day, 30 minutes another day. I have the same rules for mowing on my fescue as I do the bluegrass. I don't like to water on the days that I plan to mow. So hopefully you're getting a little bit better idea why I just don't set the timer and let it go. If I just have to mow on a Wednesday, I don't want my water running Wednesday morning. Now on those 2 days a week I water my fescue, 30 minutes each day, I'll split those up into 15-minute intervals. So each zone will run 15 minutes. It'll cycle through all the zones. The well will take a break for an hour, 2 hours, and then it fires back up and runs another 15 minutes and goes throughout all the zones. So I do that 2 days a week, and that gives me roughly 1 inch of water for that week. Then on my fescue, I'll do my syringing in the heat of the day or toward the end of the day, about 3 minutes a zone, whereas back down the bluegrass, I'll run it 5 to 6 minutes a zone. The reason for that is my coverage up here on the fescue is considerably better, because it's a underground system with I-20s, like I said, and it's just mapped out just right. Back there I've got above ground sprinklers for right now, and I move them around. And yes, the irrigreen system is still back there. It's alive and well, but I just haven't had time to get my Wi-Fi figured out and set up. I've actually got a booster out there, and it ain't really doing all that much boosting, because I think it's just too far from my router inside my home. So yes, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do, if I'm going to hardwire Wi-Fi out there, because you know the irrigreen runs off Wi-Fi. So I ain't figured that part out yet. When I get it figured out, promise you I'm gonna take you through start to finish and show you that irrigreen system, how it works and all that. But I got to get the Wi-Fi figured out before I can actually do that. So let's take a trip to my shop and we'll go look at the Bermuda, and we'll talk about the Bermuda grass, how I water out there. So I had to slip a little mow in on you, get the Bermuda cut real nice and tight. Got this cut at 3/4 of an inch. Still got my green cut at 1/8 of an inch. We'll talk about that in another video. Like I said, I've been talking about this whole video, water's life, right? Yeah, I'm hot right now. I just got done double cutting this, a lot of walking, so I'm hot. I need something to hydrate myself, something to cool me down, so I grabbed me a jug of water. I mean, not a jug, but a bottle of water. Right now I could probably drink a whole jug if it was nice and cold. So my Bermuda grass out here at the shop, I water it 20 minutes twice a week. That's kind of my normal routine watering, and I do the same way as I do with my fescue and bluegrass, is I bust that up into 2 10-minute intervals. And again, I don't water on the days I mow. It'll come on around 6 a.m. in the morning, run 10 minutes each zone. It'll rest for about an hour and then repeat that process. I do the exact same thing as far as syringing goes. Any day that's above 90 degrees, I'll syringe this out here for about 3 or 4 minutes a zone. Even though Bermuda isn't quite as susceptible to disease and fungus as say fescue and bluegrass, I still water early enough in the day so by the time the sun goes down, the leaf blade is physically dry to the touch. I don't want that moisture on the plant overnight. Now, how do I manage this around rainfall? Well, I got a rain gauge here. I got a rain gauge at my house. I got a rain gauge on my phone. You know, I can look at the local weather and they'll measure, you know, my area and tell me how much rain we get at any given point in time. I had a new well installed out here this past January. Got really fortunate, hit 50 gallons a minute. That same 80 PSI, and then of course I added a booster pump to it because I'm pumping it probably 150 foot from the well out here to the front yard. And so this system out here puts out a pretty good amount of water. I can't even remember, I don't even know what heads, let me go look see what head I got out here. I can't remember what irrigation heads I had out here. These are the Rainbird something or another irrigation heads out here, and they actually put out a pretty good, you know, flow of water. So I got really good coverage. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 zones out here. They all, you know, spray head to head, so I got super good coverage out here. I've never actually physically measured the output, meaning put cups out in the yard and collected the water to see how much water I'm getting in a, you know, any given time. But based on my other 2 irrigation systems and me looking at this and just watching the water coming out of the heads, I'm gonna guess that 20 minutes 2 times a week is right at 1 inch of water. Now, how do I compensate for rainfall and that kind of thing? Well, it's really easy. I got a rain gauge here, got a rain gauge at the house. My phone's got a rain gauge on it, meaning my local weather forecast. You know, it's pretty much basic math. If I get a 1/2 inch, you know, in any given week, then I'll cut my water back 50% and I only water it a 1/2 inch. If we get 1 inch of rain in a week, do the math, I'll cut the water off. It's that simple. And I won't run it for 4, 5, 6 days. That does not change my syringing habits, okay? If it's still above 90 degrees, I still syringe the grass. Just because I've got water in the ground and adequate moisture to promote growth in the ground, doesn't mean the actual blade of the turf is gonna stay cool, okay? If it rained yesterday and it's 98 degrees today, the surface of the turf is still going to get hot. So with everything I've said in this video about the 3 different turf types, blue, fescue, and bermuda, is everything I've said cut and dried and set in stone? Absolutely not. It is not set in stone. Now what I mean by that is if we get into crazy drought periods, I know a whole lot of you around the country or just like we are experiencing super hot weather, little to no rain. Fortunately, we got a lot of good rain yesterday. I think we ended up getting about 2 inches of rain. And to answer that question before you ask it, no, that 2 inches of rain, I will not cut the water off for 2 complete weeks. Absolutely not. You have to remember, we're in the heat of summer. The ground is going to dry up quicker than it normally would, say in the spring and fall. So you got to kind of take that into consideration as well. I might go 4, 5, 6 days without the water, without irrigation, especially on my bermuda and my fescue. There's absolutely no way I can do that with the bluegrass. So back to talking about drought, you know, you can't really program your system to put out 1 inch of water a week and just forget it, okay? Sometimes that's not enough. The hotter and drier that it gets during the summer, typically the more water you need to supplement with your irrigation. That's a lot of trial and error. I can't sit here and give you an exact time. Hey, Billy, run your irrigation for 45 minutes, 3 times a week, and everything's gonna be hunky-dory. I can't do that. I mean, my ground is different than your ground. Different soil structures and soil types hold water and drain water more or less than others. So I feel like the whole 1 inch per week thing is kind of a good baseline to get you going good. So at the end of the day, water the grass enough to where it stays green. If it's within your budget, if you have the water to supply your turf and all those kind of things kind of fall into place, I ain't by no means telling you to go broke watering your grass, because at the end of the day, it is just grass, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. That's John 3:16. And right behind that, John 3:17 says that God did not send Jesus to the world to condemn the world, but to save the world, and that you can be saved through him. That, friends, is the living water. That's the living water that can save your soul. So water is life in more ways than just one way. You can water the grass and make it green. You can drink water to stay hydrated, or you can trust the living water, Jesus Christ, with your soul. So with that said, I want to make sure you get your water right. As always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch. I'll check you later.